En nombre de la Federación Latinoamericana de Terapia Nutricional, Nutrición Clínica y Metabolismo, FELANPE, Sergio Santana y yo, Sonia Echeverry, damos la cordial bienvenida a la Mesa Redonda, Declaración de Cartagena por el derecho al cuidado nutricional 2 años después de su firma. El 3 de mayo de 2019 en Cartagena, Colombia, las 16 sociedades iberoamericanas de la FELANPE, tras firmar la Declaración de Cartagena, se comprometieron a defender el derecho al cuidado nutricional y a luchar contra la malnutrición. Se trata de un instrumento, aunque no vinculante, tiene una fuerza moral innegable, el cual compromete a las partes a aunar esfuerzos en esta lucha común. Es importante recordar que la Declaración de Cartagena tiene como antecedente la Declaración de Cancún 2008, proyecto liderado por el doctor Juan Carlos Castillo y hizo referencia por primera vez al derecho a la nutrición en el hospital en Latinoamérica. A continuación, tengo el agrado de presentar al doctor Humberto Arenas Márquez, cirujano, oriundo de la ciudad de Guadalajara, México, past president de la FELANPE. El doctor Arenas abordará el tema Declaración de Cartagena, un acto de justicia social para los pacientes. Adelante, doctor Arenas.
Muchas gracias, Sonia, amigos de FELANPE. Agradezco la invitación para colaborar en esta mesa redonda sobre la Declaración de Cartagena y específicamente lo que a mí se me ha asignado, pues es para hablar de la acción que hace nuestra declaración a través de la justicia social. Es importante entender primero cómo definir la justicia social, qué implica la justicia social. Pues básicamente tenemos que entender la justicia social a partir del hecho de que nuestro mundo y especialmente nuestra Latinoamérica vive diariamente hechos de injusticia social. La justicia social va enfocada a una repartición justa y equitativa de los bienes y los servicios básicos necesarios para el desarrollo y desenvolvimiento de una persona en la sociedad, como por ejemplo el bienestar, la educación, la salud, los derechos humanos. Si bien existe realmente una Carta Magna de los Derechos Humanos, el que exista no quiere decir que así se aplica. Y ahí está el gran problema que tenemos, no nomás en Latinoamérica, sino en el mundo, pero especialmente debemos enfocarnos a nuestro problema. Y es importante entender que si existe ese acto de injusticia social, existe también porque nosotros mismos, los profesionales de la salud, lo hemos tolerado. Y ahí viene la inconsciencia de nuestra conciencia. Hablamos de la necesidad de que los pacientes tienen en nuestra Declaración de Cartagena, tienen el derecho a ser alimentados, pero deben ser alimentados en forma óptima, deben ser alimentados por la persona correcta, por el equipo humano correcto, de tal forma que esa justicia social implica que nosotros como profesionales de salud nos comprometamos a la acción, y esa acción tiene que ser constante, tiene que ser congruente. Es importante enfatizar que vivimos en una situación muy difícil durante esta pandemia de COVID, lo cual se hará más difícil, pero no veo un mejor momento para que nosotros como profesionales de la salud aboguemos por los derechos de nuestros pacientes. ¿Cómo hacerlo? Desde nuestra trinchera, desde nuestras organizaciones. Es obvio que aquí quizás es donde hemos fallado. Hemos trabajado mucho en la ciencia de la nutrición, hemos trabajado en la educación, pero no hemos enfatizado que es nuestra responsabilidad social comprometernos en esta lucha. Y aquí viene un punto muy importante. Dios nos ha dado a cada uno de nosotros una inteligencia emocional, y esa inteligencia emocional, básicamente los pilares de esa inteligencia emocional están en la conciencia social. Es decir, si somos profesionales de la salud y no tenemos conciencia social por lo que sucede a nuestros pacientes, a nuestra sociedad, estamos perdidos. Es nuestra obligación, insisto, tener esa conciencia social. Y esa conciencia social es la que nos lleva a la acción de entender, de escuchar, de proponer, de organizar, de comprometernos, y como una cultura organizacional, como lo expresa la Declaración de Cartagena, insistir que es solo a través de la acción grupal, de las coaliciones de organizaciones de profesionales de la salud, donde debemos decir, ya basta. El paciente tiene el derecho de ser atendido nutricionalmente en forma óptima. Y como se ha insistido, esto es un acto de justicia social. No hacerlo es fallar a nuestros principios. Por lo tanto, también es importante enfatizar que esa conciencia social debe de ir también acompañada de una autoconciencia, de una autorregulación. Actualmente existen muchos profesionales de la salud que dicen que alimentan al paciente, pero nunca se han preparado para hacerlo en forma óptima. El paciente, la sociedad requiere profesionales óptimos, profesionales que realmente se preparen, sean competentes para poder brindar esa atención nutricional. De nada nos sirve utilizar la terapia nutricional si no es aplicada en forma correcta. De ahí que debemos entender que mucha mala práctica de la nutrición no es más que un mal resultado de la educación en nutrición. Y es función de nuestras organizaciones buscar la óptima educación nutricional para nuestros profesionales en beneficio de nuestros pacientes. Entonces, autorregulación, autoconciencia, conciencia social, manejo de relaciones, claves para poder dialogar con las autoridades, con los que forman las políticas públicas, con los legisladores, con los gobiernos, para luchar por los beneficios de nuestros pacientes. Es también importante recordar una frase que hemos acuñado, hemos aprendido y hemos practicado. No podemos dejar de reconocer que comer es un privilegio que tenemos todos cada día. Todos los seres humanos tenemos una necesidad básica, que es alimentarnos. Es un privilegio el que podamos disponer de recursos para ello, de que podamos disfrutar esa alimentación. Por lo tanto, en nuestro compromiso social, el luchar porque haya desaparición del hambre en el mundo. Por otro lado, también no poder comer es una desgracia. Pero si esa desgracia o ese paciente en esa desgracia está en manos de un equipo de profesionales competente, con conciencia social de la importancia de la nutrición, sin duda que ese paciente será nutrido en el momento correcto, por el equipo correcto, a la dosis correcta. Finalmente, no dejar comer a nuestros pacientes es un crimen, es una afectación a la dignidad humana y no podemos tolerar más esto en el siglo XXI. ¿Qué viene por delante? Una tremenda crisis económica y nunca habrá un mejor momento para establecer que nutrir a un paciente en el momento adecuado, en la dosis correcta, en el lugar correcto, por el equipo correcto, sin duda le dará un gran valor a la atención del paciente. Finalmente, quiero tocar el tema en esta justicia social que implica también la remuneración por ese servicio, por esa atención nutricional. Infortunadamente, tenemos evidencias publicadas por ESPEN en la literatura donde se acepta en ocasiones que no es la falta de educación, no es la falta de recursos para dar una nutrición óptima, es la falta de remuneración la que muchas veces lleva también a la desmotivación. Ahí es donde también debemos de enfatizar que si hacemos una nutrición dentro del concepto del valor, otro aspecto que se toca en la Declaración de Cartagena, el valor finalmente es el resultado en la atención de un paciente dado. Y el gran problema ha sido que la nutrición nunca ha sido considerada como parte esencial de todas estas terapias que ofrecemos a los pacientes. Debemos de luchar por ello. Y si luchamos por ello, entonces podremos ver el resultado en nuestros pacientes y medir el valor de esa atención. Y entonces, y solo entonces, también los sistemas de salud tendrán que virar a valorar el costo que implica ese resultado. Y no hay duda que el mejor resultado se logra en el paciente bien nutrido, en forma oportuna. En resumen, la Declaración de Cartagena es un elemento de justicia social que nos compromete a muchas organizaciones, y yo felicito especialmente a la doctora Diana Cárdenas, al doctor Charles Bermúdez, quienes fueron los que iniciaron esta lucha. Y esa palabra me encanta. Tenemos que luchar. Y como dijo Cervantes de Saavedra, nunca te rindas por aquello que tienes el derecho de ganar. Muchas gracias por su atención y espero los haya concientizado de la participación para lograr que la nutrición llegue en el momento oportuno a todos nuestros pacientes por los equipos correctos para el mejor resultado en el paciente. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Muchas gracias, doctor Arenas. Excelente abordaje de un tema que requiere la unión y el engranaje universal con el fin de lograr un mundo nutricional más justo y asequible para los pacientes. Siguiendo con la agenda, me complace presentar al doctor Charles Bermúdez, cirujano colombiano, especialista en Derecho Médico. Past President de la Asociación Colombiana de Nutrición Clínica y uno de los principales gestores de la Declaración de Cartagena, como acaban de escuchar al doctor Humberto Arenas. El doctor Bermúdez presentará el tema los principios de la Declaración de Cartagena. Adelante, doctor Bermúdez.
Apreciada Sonia, muchas gracias al comité organizador por la invitación. Para mí siempre será un privilegio y mucho más hablar de la Declaración de Cartagena, que ha sido uno de nuestros principales motivos de trabajo durante estos 4 años. Por supuesto, tenemos que hablar acerca de la declaración y cuando hablamos de ella debemos considerarla como un documento macro. Y los principios de los cuales vamos a mencionar básicamente buscan o dan el marco para promover el desarrollo de ese cuidado nutricional. Reconociendo, por supuesto, inicialmente ese antecedente que nos habló ya Sonia de la Declaración de Cancún, donde se reconoce ese derecho a la alimentación y a la nutrición en el ámbito clínico. Y la Declaración de Cartagena con un paso más allá, donde se reconoce por primera vez ese cuidado nutricional como un derecho humano y que está relacionado con el derecho a la salud y la alimentación. Por supuesto, tenemos esta historia, 2008, Declaración de Cancún, 2018, el primer momento donde empezamos a discutir la Declaración de Cartagena en Guadalajara y pasamos de las palabras a la acción y finalmente la firma en 2019 en Cartagena, Colombia. ¿Y cómo vamos en 2021? ¿Por qué entonces una declaración para luchar contra la desnutrición? Básicamente porque sabemos que la desnutrición asociada a enfermedad tiene una alta prevalencia, no solamente en países subdesarrollados, sino también en países desarrollados. Porque además tenemos un cuidado nutricional insuficiente, porque la educación en terapia médica nutricional o en nutrición en las facultades de medicina es muy poca y por supuesto existe en muchos de nuestros países una falta de políticas públicas en nutrición clínica. Abordando este marco, conocemos uno de estos estudios publicado en el 2020, donde encontramos en Colombia 38% de riesgo de malnutrición en el paciente que se hospitaliza, para Latinoamérica el 41%, y pueden ver las otras cifras a nivel mundial. Y cómo ese cuidado nutricional es insuficiente, y vean cómo a pesar de determinar o de hacer un diagnóstico de un 38% de malnutrición, son muy pocas las personas que teniendo ese riesgo nutricional reciben una terapia nutricional, una terapia médica nutricional continua. Cuando hablamos entonces de la educación en terapia nutricional en las facultades de medicina, tenemos esta otra publicación donde realmente las horas de enseñanza en nutrición a lo largo de los 6 o 7 años de formación médica son muy pocas. Y nos permitió mostrar que no está en la mayoría de las universidades como parte de su pénsumo, como parte de la formación de los médicos. Aunque los estudiantes de medicina reconocen la terapia nutricional como factor fundamental del manejo integral de nuestros pacientes. Cuando hablamos de política pública, este es un estudio que está próximo a publicarse, donde encontramos los diferentes países de Latinoamérica y si existe o no legislación al respecto de la terapia médica nutricional. Y vemos cómo hay en general una ausencia de política pública. Y en los países donde sí existe política pública, el cumplimiento realmente es muy bajo. Por lo tanto, el fundamento de la Declaración de Cartagena es reconocer la terapia médica nutricional como un derecho humano, y esa es la parte innovadora, con unos objetivos claros, que es, y ya lo mencionó el doctor Arenas, el respeto por la dignidad humana, la vida y las libertades fundamentales. Por supuesto, fomentar esa concientización, entendiendo la malnutrición asociada a enfermedad como un problema real y altamente prevalente en nuestros países, impulsando de esta forma la investigación en terapia médica nutricional y la educación de esta misma manera. Y por supuesto, proporcionar todos unos principios que se conviertan en ese fundamento para entender la terapia médica nutricional en el ámbito clínico. Encontrando entonces estos 13 principios. Primero, reconocer la dignidad de la persona enferma y la alimentación como parte fundamental para el adecuado cuidado integral del paciente. Entender ese cuidado nutricional como un proceso, como un continuo de cuidado. Empoderar, por supuesto, a los pacientes, enseñarles la importancia de la terapia médica nutricional dentro de la recuperación de sus patologías. Buscar, y ya lo mencionó el doctor Arenas, un enfoque interdisciplinario para garantizar y poder proveer el mejor cuidado nutricional disponible dentro de unos marcos éticos de ese cuidado nutricional, integrando, por supuesto, valor a la terapia nutricional en el tratamiento de nuestros pacientes, teniendo como pilar fundamental, por supuesto, la investigación y la educación como ejes fundamentales de ese cuidado nutricional, fortaleciendo las redes, creando una cultura institucional, imprimiendo en el ADN de las instituciones la terapia médica nutricional como factor fundamental para el cuidado de nuestros pacientes. En el marco, por supuesto, de los principios éticos y de transparencia, con unos aliados que es la industria farmacéutica y de alimentos. Y al final, un llamado a la acción internacional, que es en lo que se ha venido trabajando de forma reciente. Por lo tanto, ya lo mencionó Sonia, se trata de un instrumento no vinculante, pero que tiene una fuerza moral que nadie puede negar para luchar contra esa malnutrición. Y por eso FELANPE en su momento insta, y todas las sociedades, colegios y asociaciones pertenecientes a FELANPE, a defender ese derecho al cuidado nutricional. Teniendo en cuenta estas publicaciones que van a ser marco para poder desarrollar todas las tareas que vienen a continuación. Estas son las bibliografías donde pueden encontrar las publicaciones que se han hecho al respecto, no solamente de la Declaración de Cartagena, sino de todo el marco. ¿Y qué ha pasado entonces después de este principio? Básicamente, la implementación y desarrollo de una caja de herramientas que nos permite tener ya con base en los principios que son ese qué, las acciones que van a ser el cómo desarrollar todo este plan de acción y pasar, como lo mencionó el doctor Arenas, de las palabras a la acción. Con el agradecimiento infinito por mucha gente que ha trabajado con nosotros, que nos ha dado su punto de vista, que ha opinado y que sobre todo ha demostrado ese amor por nuestros pacientes buscando un mejor cuidado nutricional. Buscando de esta forma generar competencias en nutrición en las facultades de medicina. Este artículo fue aceptado, recibimos la noticia el día de ayer, ya para ser publicado, sobre el consenso de enseñanza en nutrición en América Latina, que nos va a dar un marco importante. Buscando además una segunda herramienta que es el modelo del cuidado nutricional como ese proceso de cuidado nutricional, con un código de ética del nutricionista clínico y con unas políticas públicas que nos permitan ese marco de referencia para que cada país pueda adaptarlas, adoptarlas y por supuesto llevarlas a feliz término. Y por último, con la creación de ese grupo internacional de trabajo. Un grupo internacional que hoy nos demuestra que juntos somos más y que son más las cosas que nos unen que las diferencias y que nos permiten o nos permitirán en un futuro defender de manera suficiente ese derecho que tienen nuestros pacientes para garantizar el mejor cuidado nutricional posible. Y de esta forma, con el principio número 13, que es ese mandato que hace la FELANPE y que hoy está siendo acogido por las sociedades que mencioné anteriormente. ¿Para qué? Simplemente para que se garanticen todas las personas, pero especialmente en esa malnutrición asociada a enfermedad, el cuidado nutricional, una terapia nutricional óptima y oportuna que reduzca esas tasas de desnutrición hospitalaria y sobre todo todos esos eventos adversos asociados a la malnutrición. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Gracias, doctor Bermúdez. Excelente presentación que muestra uno de los pilares más fuertes de la Declaración de Cartagena y que ha hecho que otras sociedades pares de la FELANPE decidieran asumir esta bandera como propia y llevarla a niveles, aunque esperados, impensables.
First of all, my best wishes of health and luck to every one of you all gathered here today. May I also thank you for your time and disposition. On behalf of the Latin American Federation of Clinical Nutrition, Nutritional Therapy, and Metabolism, I'm welcoming you, all of you, to the roundtable, the Declaration of Cartagena, 2 years after its signing. It goes without saying, this roundtable is one of the highlights of the 17th Latin American Congress of Clinical Nutrition, Nutritional Therapy, and Metabolism taking place in the city of Guayaquil under the auspice of FELANPE and in close collaboration with many others. For the first time in many years, as long as I can remember, the leaders of the global and regional organization devoted to the nutritional care of patients in the different scenarios of the medical care convened together to proclaim nutrition as a human right of the person. This unique effort should be commended and should mark a turning point in our endeavors around the world to nutritional care, one of the mainstays of medical and surgical care of our patients. Without further ado, I give you Dr. Evelyn Frias Toral, who will be presenting of that present today in this so special occasion. Once again, thank you all.
Hello, everybody. It is a great pleasure for us to start with the roundtable about Cartagena Declaration for the Human Right to Nutritional Care 2 years after signing it. So in this part of the convention, we are going to talk with some important representatives of different societies. And we are going to start with Dr. Cárdenas. She is a professor of nutrition at El Bosque University and coordinator of the International Working Group for Patients' Right to Nutritional Care, editor-in-chief from Revista de Nutrición Clínica y Metabolismo, and associate editor from Clinical Nutrition Aspen. Then we're going to talk to Dr. Rice. He's an intensivist and critical care researcher at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. He's the president of Aspen. And Dr. Cressy, she's a director for nutrition research within the Center for Human Nutrition, Digestive Disease and Surgery Institute at Cleveland Clinic. She is currently a member of the Aspen Executive Committee and will be president in June 2021. Then Dr. Rocco Barazzoni is an associate professor and consultant of internal medicine at Trieste University Hospital, and he's the current Aspen chairman. Dr. Vinay, he's the PENSA president, Aspen president, and head department of surgery from the Surin Hospital in Thailand. Also, we're gonna talk to Dr. Pounds. She's the WASPEN president, director of the pharmacy residency program, and manager of clinical services pharmacy at the Atlanta Medical Center. She's also a clinical adjunct professor and director of clinical education at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine School of Pharmacy. Then Dr. Rodriguez is a professor of nutrition in palliative care at Católica University, president of FELANPE, and head of clinical nutrition and dietetics area from the Cancer Hospital Solca in Guayaquil, Ecuador. Finally, Dr. Ferreira is the elected FELANPE president, consultant of nutrition from INERAM Hospital, and associate professor of nutrition at National University and Católica University in Asunción, Paraguay.
It is an honor for me to introduce this roundtable on strategies for global engagement on clinical nutrition and human rights. I will focus my presentation first on a very brief summary on the work done by the working group and on the strategies to disseminate this initiative. In other words, I would like to explain how to put clinical nutrition into the agenda of human rights. So, the International Working Group for Patients' Right to Nutritional Care was created last year, in 2020. It is composed of experts from continental clinical nutrition societies, ESPEN, ASPEN, FELANPE, PENSA, and WASPEN, and also by experts in other fields as pediatrics, human rights, and other social and human science. The first question I have is, where does this initiative come from? Why we are here? Why we create this working group? So the human right-based approach has been reflected in different international documents, but we need to recognize that the first document of the first international document to talk about nutritional care as a human right, as we have defined it, was the Cartagena Declaration. This is the International Declaration on the Right to Nutritional Care and the Fight Against Malnutrition. This was a declaration signed in 2019 by all the societies member of FELANPE and as witnessed ASPEN, ESPEN, and other international clinical nutrition societies. In this document, we recognize that nutritional care is a human right linked to two very well-known human rights, the right to health and the right to food. So this declaration, this document, proposed 13 principles to protect, to fulfill, and to promote the right to nutritional care. This is a very important document for Latin America that, in my opinion, have really an important impact until now. So in the principle 13, we have a call to international action. And it is here that we can find our starting point of the working group. We can legitimize our actions in the principle 13 of the Cartagena Declaration. In this principle, we have the definition of this human right. And we have, in other words, we have the scope of this human right. And this human right guarantees all people, especially the malnourished ill, access to nutritional care, and in particular, optimal and timely nutritional therapy in order to reduce the high rates of disease-related malnutrition and associated morbidity and mortality, among other things. So what's the aim of the working group? Our main aim is to recognize and promote nutritional care as a human right. And for this, we need to study nutritional care as a human right, to promote the recognition of this human right at all levels. And very important, and we are convinced that we need to promote the respect and fulfillment of this human right at the governmental level. We need to recognize three very important aspects of three key elements. First of all, this approach is a new topic in clinical nutrition. We are really studying it. Second, this involves an interdisciplinary work between human and social science and medical and biological science. And we need to consider this as a strategy, among others, to promote the development and access to nutritional care and raising awareness on disease-related malnutrition. So our first action was to write and publish a position paper. This is the recently joint publication on clinical nutrition and clinical in NCP, Nutrition and Clinical Practice, the journals of ASPEN and ESPEN. And I want to say thank you for both societies for allowing this joint publication. So in this paper, we aim to provide a link to explain the link between clinical nutrition and human rights. And this is an attempt to characterize nutritional care as a human right and thus highlight the need to an early diagnosis, a treatment, and a holistic process of patient care. In this paper, we define the scope, very important. We need to know that we are defending the right to nutritional care access, the access to nutritional care. This means the right to every patient to be screened, diagnosis, assessment, nutritional therapy, and monitoring. We are not defending the right to be free from malnutrition. And also very important, we need to know that we are not defending the obligation to feed all patients at any stage of life at any cost. On the contrary, this right implies, from an ethical point of view, that the best decision for the patients must be taken, and this may include, under certain circumstances, do not feed the patient. So this is our main message. Nutritional care is at the intersection of two well-known human rights, the right to food and the right to health. So now, how does the human rights-based approach can beneficiate clinical nutrition societies and clinical nutrition as a discipline and the patient's care? As any human right, so by identifying major priorities and objectives. This can be, for example, by acknowledging that we need to improve research, medical education, to highlight the economic aspect of nutritional care, to create an institutional cultural value that values nutritional care, and to promote patient empowerments. Those are necessary actions to improve nutritional care. Second, by identifying specific duties for the duty bearers and the right holders. And very important, it implies an ethical commitment. So we need to recognize that this approach can have an impact on different stakeholders. First, the patients. The patient has the right to beneficiate from the whole process of nutritional care, the right to be screened or diagnosed, etc. For practitioners have the duty to assure optimal and timely nutritional care, to respect dignity of those in need of nutritional care. For clinical nutrition societies, they have the duty to promote nutritional care as a human right. And for policymakers from the governments, they are bound to respect, to protect, and to fulfill the right to beneficiate of the whole process of nutritional care. So, more precisely, for clinicians, what's the impact of this approach? We need first to know that there is a link between ethics and human rights, and there are guiding values for clinical nutrition practitioners. Together, they ensure a patient-centered approach where the needs and rights of the patients are of the greatest importance. So the human rights norms and ethical values and principles can contribute to moving forward in fighting malnutrition in the clinical context. The impact for clinical nutrition societies. This approach on human rights can provide a unique and valuable guidance for future aims and objectives for societies, as for example, the webinar that we had on June, and the coming Malnutrition Awareness Week of Aspen to be held on October of this year. For policymakers, we are convinced that this approach could help to bridge the gaps between scientists and policymakers. And very important, this approach could ground public health policies in clinical nutrition. So very briefly, to summary, the strategy for the protection of this human right, the human right to nutritional care. This is a kind of message for all the societies that want to follow and to join our initiative. First of all, we need to recognize that nutritional care can be considered as a human right, linked in a close relation to the right to food and the right to health. Second, to promote at different levels this human right-based approach or this human right, and to develop an action plan. So this is what most of all the society have been already done. They have already recognized, they are now promoting, and we are together building an action plan. So finally, we are convinced that by recognizing this human right, we can contribute to the goals of the United Nations Agenda 2030 that pretends through the objective 2 to end all forms of malnutrition. So before beginning the roundtable, I would like to share some key messages. First of all, nutritional care should be considered as a fundamental human right, intrinsically linked to the right to food as well as to the right to health. This approach, the human right-based approach in clinical nutrition, could contribute to the construction of a moral, political, and legal perspective globally in the concept of nutritional care. It can be the cornerstone of the rationale of political and legal instruments in the field of clinical nutrition. So this is an invitation to join us and to stand for patients' right to nutritional care. So you can find our position paper in nutritional clinical practice and clinical nutrition. Is free access. You can visit our YouTube channel and see and share our videos. Thank you very much.
And now we're going to listen to Dr. Todd Bryce, Past President of Aspen, and the floor is yours, Doctor. We are happy to hear you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this roundtable. I don't have any slides to show, but I think Dr. Kresge may show some slides on Aspen's strategy after me. What I'm going to try and do is kind of give an introduction to that strategy and kind of where we are in North America with regards to nutrition as a human right. In North America in general, the majority of people believe that nutrition should be a human right. And so trying to get the message out, I think, is not the hard part. The hard part is awareness, and awareness that malnutrition is occurring in our country and our local communities. And just because it's not as apparent and as obvious doesn't mean that it's not present. And so I think trying to get recognition of what malnutrition means, and it may not be the same thing for every patient population. It might be protein malnutrition in one patient or protein and calories in another patient, but many patients may be okay with protein and calories, and they may have micronutrient malnutrition and deficiencies of micronutrients. And I think, you know, in North America, trying to recognize what each individual patient is malnourished from and what they need is sort of the big challenge. And then to make people, both the population at large and the providers, aware of the fact that malnutrition doesn't always have to be marasmus or kwashiorkor, but that there are other forms and that those need to be recognized and treated also is a big part of of kind of the steps that need to be taken in North America. Once those steps are started to be taken and there's recognition, then things can happen like educating about those syndromes, doing some research in those syndromes, trying to find out best treatment strategies for those syndromes. But really that first step for us is understanding, recognizing, and identifying what patients have malnutrition and what their malnutrition syndrome is, and what they need to correct and treat it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rice, for your intervention. Now we are going to listen to Dr. Gail Cressy, elected president from Aspen. Dr. Cressy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Sorry, my slides are not coming up, so I'm not going to have any slides either. But I just want to continue from what Dr. Rice was presenting regarding Aspen's initiative. And to help raise awareness, Aspen has really focused on Malnutrition Awareness Week. That's been ongoing for several years, and the initiative has really grown over the last several years. We have it's a much more robust program. We're involved with lots of education. We do advocacy. We have ambassadors from different institutions that help to raise the awareness. And we have industry is also participating. We offer different podcasts, webinars to get this word out. But it's important to raise the awareness, but also with the awareness is to then do the implementation. And so to assist clinicians with increasing this awareness, there's several steps that have been implemented and are actually pretty successful. So through our advocacy to governmental bodies, one in particular is an agency called Joint Commission on Hospital Accreditation. And hospitals, it's a voluntary basis to undergo this accreditation, but most hospitals in the United States do seek this accreditation. And what's very great about this is that in this process, it's pretty much mandated that hospitals have a screening process for malnutrition or patients at nutrition risk. And so this typically falls when the patient's first admitted to the hospital, that nurses ask patients, you know, really a long list of questions. And typically hospitals have one or two questions that raise the red flag that this patient may have some type of nutrition risk. And most hospitals following that, that triggers a consult to the dietitians who then come and do a full nutrition assessment for the patient and make nutrition recommendations. And then to help dietitians support that they should be doing this, and to support physicians and to support nurses with our interdisciplinary professional society, is that Aspen has put together clinical guidelines as well as standards of practice. And these are evidence-based practices that these clinicians use at their hospitals to help drive policies within the hospital to support the screening and assessment and intervention. And to really drive it home, everyone's, our ultimate goal is, of course, to improve patient outcomes. So to help justify that what we're doing, this awareness and intervention is actually improving patient outcomes, we support different research. And so Aspen has several, the Aspen Rose Research Foundation offers research grants that members can apply for to help support this and gain this evidence. Also, what's really exciting is that here in the United States, the National Institutes of Health has developed a 10-year strategic plan for nutrition research. And so this started in 2020 and it goes to 2030. And within the strategic plan, they have a whole section on clinical nutrition. And within that clinical nutrition section, they have malnutrition is a component of this. And Aspen, as well as other nutrition societies in the United States, have been invited to participate in developing the strategic plan and and this is an ongoing process. It's just brand new. So we're really excited to be a part of this, and we're hoping to be able to support research to identify when we should intervene, what type of biomarkers we may look at that helps us determine early intervention and whether the patients are responding and supporting the patient outcomes. And lastly, I just want to say that Aspen can't do this by themselves. And so we do really appreciate collaborations with other societies, not only within the United States, but globally. And so we're really excited to be a part of this forum. We really thank you for inviting us to participate. And it's so exciting to see all of our partners here also during this roundtable. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Cressy, for your intervention. And now we are going to listen to Dr. Guinay from the Pensa Society. Dr. Guinay, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Vinay, the president of PENSA, the Parental Enteral Nutrition of Asia. It is my honor to be the speaker in this roundtable today. And the point of view of the clinical nutrition related to human rights, I think that after I have invited to do as the working group from last December 2020, I have introduced and get this issue into the PENSA Executive Committee meeting. And we have this wide discussion about the human right in clinical nutrition care. And we found that we have some heterogeneous in the clinical practice from country to country, but the meeting is agree with the importance of the human right in the clinical nutrition care. So the PENSA Society is agree to support of the human right in clinical nutrition. For the strategy in order to do the clinical nutrition on the human right, I think we should start from the data collection. This is very important. The data that I mean is the diagnosis of the malnutrition in each country, because we have to know how much of the problems of the malnutrition in each country, and this can drive the empowerment to the patients and the people to know that they need to have the clinical nutrition care when they are diagnosed of the malnutrition. And the second thing is how to improve the reimbursement program from each country. I have the experience in Thailand about the improvements of the reimbursement program in Thailand. I want to share with you. In the past, the reimbursement program is not appropriate due to the malnutrition is not allowed to reimburse and at the very long times ago. But now the reimbursement program is allowed to be used in every hospital in Thailand when the patient diagnosed of the moderate to severe malnutrition. It is quite improvement in our activities about the right or the access to the clinical nutrition care in Thailand. And the last thing, I think the collaborations and use of the network to use of the guideline or some of the research working together from society to society. And this is the challenge for us to do in our society. And lastly, I would like to confirm that Pensa Society member are agree to the clinical nutrition on human rights and would like to support this activity from our society. Thank you.
Thank you for your nice intervention, Dr. Winay. And now we are going to hear Dr. Pounds, President from WASPEN. Dr. Pounds, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, the name is Teresa Pounds. And thank you for this invitation. I appreciate it. And I think WASPEN also appreciates it. I'm speaking on behalf of the West African Society of Parental and Enteral Nutrition. I would just like to, again, I don't have slides, so I'm just going to make some key points. I think just like everybody else has mentioned, trying to actually quantify the incidence of malnutrition in the West African countries is one of the first things we're trying to do. Before I go on to say anything, let me give a little history about WASPEN. It's a newly formed organization going to about 2 years now. I'm the founding president and also the current, I'm the founding person and also the current president. Is actually housed in Nigeria, which is also one of the countries in West Africa. And we're trying to collaborate with all the West African countries to address the issue of malnutrition. We know it exists, but we're trying to quantify what is the incidence of malnutrition in any of these countries. So we started with a survey, at least in Nigeria, in the different hospitals to kind of get a feel for what is actually happening in the hospitals in terms of what are they doing in terms of assessment. I mean, the screening of the patients when they come in, which as the president of ASPEN mentioned and the previous speakers, you have to assess the patient nutritional status to know what their nutritional status is before you do a nutrition assessment. And what kind of, teams do they have available in institution? Do they have a multidisciplinary team that then addresses what has to be done with this patient? So that's the first thing we're doing. Based on the answers that we received, at least in Nigeria, we know that we need to do a lot of work to increase the awareness of malnutrition and to increase the awareness that we need to address nutrition as part of what we have to give to the care. So we're making some fundamental steps. Now, we're also finding that affordability of the products to treat malnutrition is also something we're dealing with. So yes, if we diagnose that the patient is malnourished and maybe they need parental nutrition or enteral nutrition, affording the products is also something we're noticing. And we already have like advocacy groups. We're working with our Ministry of Health, trying to really advocate to see not only how do we make malnutrition definitely a key thing that will be addressed in hospitals, and how do we address it whereby once we address that they're malnourished, how can we make sure that they can afford the products? Now, we believe in collaboration, and that's why we made it West Africa. So the next step is for the WASPEN to start bringing in other countries in West Africa, and we're already making steps towards that to start increasing the same. And I'm really glad that we were invited to speak on this because we also want to collaborate with all globally. We're fortunate. I'm a member of ASPEN, also a member of the international section of ASPEN. So partnering and working with that group also is helping. So I think the main thing I would like to close by saying with WASPEN, our focus is increase the awareness about malnutrition, see how we can come up with ideas and ways to ensure the multidisciplinary team approach, ensure that these patients who are malnourished have access to nutritional care in an affordable manner. And the third thing I would like to say is that we definitely believe in collaboration, and I'm very, very glad that we were given this opportunity to be part of this group, and more to come on that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pounds, for your intervention. And now we're glad to introduce Dr. Rocco Barazzoni, and the floor is yours, Dr. Barazzoni.
So thank you, Dr. Frias. Thank you, Evelyn. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for inviting me. On behalf of ESPEN, it's a great pleasure and very meaningful to participate in this roundtable, such a hot and important topic. I wish to thank FELANPE and Professor Rodriguez not only for the invitation, but also for really creating the core of this initiative, which I had the honor to witness in Cartagena in 2019. I really believe that it is great and very appropriate that the first global formal discussion on this topic occurs at a FELANPE Congress. I remember, of course, very well the discussions and the enthusiasm that I felt around the Cartagena Declaration, which I was honored to sign on behalf of ESPEN as a witness participant. And I was immediately very impressed. I thank again Charles Bermudez for inviting me to that wonderful Congress, and of course, all the FELANPE leaders there, and Diana Cárdenas again. So as all great ideas, it seems perhaps a very simple concept that as each person has a right to food, as a fundamental support for life and well-being, this should be granted even more at the time when each of us can become more frail and vulnerable. So that's the time when we become sick. Still, unfortunately, this is definitely not the case. And we know all too well that nutritional care is not regularly implemented, or certainly not as much as we would want it to be. I think this is all the more a pity, or I would even say a shame, since we have in fact increasingly strong evidence that medical nutrition saves complications, costs, and lives in many clinical settings, which links this human rights initiative on nutritional care to the other great pillar in established human rights, which is the right to health. Nutrition can really help health, and nutritional care does save and improve health. On behalf of ESPEN, we have been immediately very intrigued to promote together a global initiative on this concept. We have the example of GLIM on malnutrition diagnosis, where I think its global nature and consensus is really contributing to make it extremely strong and successful. So I think being together makes us stronger, and we will need the strength, particularly when we will eventually approach major political international stakeholders to push for official recognition of the human right to nutritional care. Speaking about the GLIM and about the growing evidence on effectiveness of nutritional care, in fact, I think it is important that we are also able, let's say, I think, to connect the dots and put this human rights initiative in a perspective where our field is growing globally. So as we push for the human rights concept, we can offer at the same time, first of all, a simplified concept of malnutrition as a disease which can be simple to identify and diagnose. And second, the fundamental evidence that nutritional care saves lives, with many important studies published in the last few years. So I believe it's very important that in this way, by connecting these dots, we can provide a strong clinical foundation for future actions to put the human right into practice. So on behalf of ESPEN, we will do our best, of course, to contribute to the development of the initiative. In fact, in our coming virtual Congress, we invited Diana, Dr. Cárdenas, to speak during the Global GLIM session. And we trust this will be a great opportunity again for a global discussion on this topic. Of course, we have launched the Human Rights Initiative in our media, wish to involve all possible potential stakeholders. Of course, this includes all colleagues from 64 national nutritional societies in the ESPEN Council. We recently discussed the initiative, which was very warmly welcomed at our special ESPEN Council meeting in May. We just had a few days ago, I hope, a great webinar on this topic. We will take all possible chances to continue this discussion. Of course, it seems obvious, but perhaps important to remind ourselves that we need to also involve patients in this campaign, as it is their right we are talking about, and they, of course, can be very strong, maybe the best advocates. I have personally started to use the concept and the logo slides very regularly when I happen to give maybe a political talk, but also clinical speeches. And I find the concept to be very well received, which is, of course, encouraging, and brings me to the final point, that it is that I am convinced that even before we are able to reach, hopefully, an official success with a formal human rights declaration for nutritional care, if we are able to disseminate this concept that nutritional care is a fundamental human right more and more, I think this idea is so powerful and direct that it has the potential to create support and strengthen our claims, let's say, along the way, and our arguments to enhance implementation of nutritional care in clinical practice. So I finish by thanking and congratulating FELANPE again for organizing this virtual Mesa Rotunda or virtual meeting, and for providing the initial opportunity to start working together in this very exciting initiative. And the global initiative, in fact, was finalized and launched in the virtual pandemic world. This goes, I think, to show that there have been great opportunities to collaborate even during this terrible time. Still, I also think that we are all experiencing the frustration that we cannot meet in person. I really hope that personal networking and international travel will be possible again in the not so distant, in the near future, let's say, to further promote the human rights to nutritional care. So thank you again for your attention and the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Braxoni, for your nice intervention. And now we are pleased to welcome Dr. Pris Bracert as a member of the Executive Committee from PENSA. Dr. Pris Bracert, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Society of Parenteral Enteral Nutrition of Thailand and Parenteral and Enteral Nutrition Society of Asia, I'm pleased to join this group of human rights. I agree with the above discussion among the experts from the whole world that human rights is important. Since human rights is is the basic proper is the basic of every human. Particularly in critical nutrition, everyone need food to support their health. So it is their own right of the people right to take food, and the food safety as well as the both quantity and quality of food is important. So the basic needs make the human rights on critical nutrition is very important. On the perspective of Asian, since Asia is the big continent and we have a lot of there are more than thousands people in our country, in our continent. There are the diversity of food and practice in critical nutrition. But the human, all of our members also agree with the concept of human rights, and we have talked as Dr. Vinay mentioned before that we are working on the how to improve the concept and to launch the policy to all of our members. And we have begun to conduct the study and to for the collecting the data of the problem of malnutrition. That I think we need the collaboration among all of the society of the world. And I'm glad to be discussed here today. And I hope that our working group as a human rights will be expand to all of among the practitioners, and we can improve our critical practice in critical nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bracert, for your intervention. And now we introduce Dr. Ferreira. So, Dr. Ferreira, we are happy to hear your exposition.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Evelyn Frias, for introducing me. And thanks, Dr. Dolores Rodriguez, for inviting me to participate in this roundtable. Okay, we all know very well that disease-related malnutrition, according to scientific evidence, has a high prevalence in all countries, in all the world, despite the advance and despite the progress that exists in nutritional therapy that allow patients to eat at time and adequately. I think and believe that there are many causes or reasons why it is very difficult to reduce the prevalent ciphers and even less to eradicate hospital malnutrition. I am referring mainly to some Latin American countries, including mine, Paraguay, where the importance it deserves is not given to nutrition matters in the different universities that train all health professionals. There is no government and empowerment to subsidize nutritional therapy in hospital. Malnutrition is not diagnosed early and undiagnosed and therefore untreated depression in certain patients. The often unnecessary indication of prolonged fast. Multi-medication with its collateral effects of digestive system, mealtime, etc., many reasons more. Remember that since Charles Bader World publication in 1974 until today, we can change so much the ciphers of malnutrition in hospital. All patients have the right to nutritional care, and the human rights-based approach must incorporate routine clinical practice of nutrition. I like so much this phrase, and I totally agree with it. Nutritional care is a human right and falls within medical ethics, since we know all the benefits that it brings and how it contributes to the recovery and well-being of our patients. Some strategies could be the following. The first point is to offer the necessary training to know the importance of the early detection of malnutrition through courses, congresses, events, work groups, virtually or presentially, and many other kinds of events. The second one is to systematically apply nutritional screening and evaluation methods through protocols in all hospitals to arrive at an early diagnosis of nutrition status. In third place, develop appropriate nutritional therapy and care protocols, either using the digestive tract, for example, orally or through feeding tubes, or parenterally, according to each particular cases, in order to obtain the benefit that such therapy provides. The fourth point is to continuously monitor, is so important, the evolution, monitor the evolution of patients and register them. And the last point is to make quality and cost management protocols for the work performed. As scientific authorities in our countries make the general public, patients, health professionals, and those responsible for government policies aware that the right to nutritional care should be an objective of state policies and programs, regardless of social, economical, cultural, political, religion, origin. In Paraguay, we are working on a bill for the malnourished in hospital. It is just a project and we just started. I know that a law, it's stages and takes time, but I hope that it will become a reality as soon as possible. Finally, we all know that without nutrition, there is no life. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ferreira, for your complete intervention. And now we are glad to introduce Dr. Rodriguez. So, Dr. Rodriguez, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I'm grateful as FELANPE's president with everyone that is conforming to this roundtable as we are showing the world that we are fighting for the same idea. Declaration. From the Latin declaratio is the action and reaction of publicity proclaiming what other people ignore or do. For this reason, we, the members of FELANPE, on May 3rd of 2019, proclaimed to the global community the importance of the Cartagena Declaration, where it is stated that the nutritional care is a human right that doesn't discriminate against the level of health care in action of fighting malnutrition in all of its stages, focusing to the link between malnutrition and disease. We are sure that an adequate nutritional therapy can help correct malnutrition, increase life expectancy, and lower comorbidities, thereby and even healthcare expenses. In the whole world, the prevalence of malnutrition in hospital widely varies depending on the local socioeconomic condition of the community. It is well known that malnutrition has worsened the outcomes of the patients and adds financial burdens to the healthcare system in many occasions. nutritional therapy is not implemented when needed, resulting in poor outcomes for the patient and is a violation of human rights. The FELANPE has developed a vision over the years focusing in education, being their principal objective the development of intellectual, moral, and effective capacity of professionals to reach a patient and the community agreeing with the culture and coexisting norms of the society that belongs. This ideal is shared with associations and societies worldwide. However, we wonder how to boost the compliance of the Cartagena Declaration. The answer is in three words: knowledge, decision, and perseverance. Focus on a coordinated answer and straight directions towards the work that needs to be done. Their implementation can contribute with the United Nations Sustainable Objective Goals, leading to the last point on the declaration. Principle 13. FELANPE shares with their stakeholders organization the concern and occupation in the different forms of malnutrition and the negative impact it has over people's health, communities, and societies. As it has been said on multiple occasions, a person is not an island, and the objectives won't be achieved if we don't work as a team. For that, we are leading a global effort so the food and nutritional security in hospitals and healthcare systems can be recognized as a leader in therapeutic success and global sanitary management, constitute as an act of social justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, for your nice intervention. And now, as a summary, Dr. Diane Cardenas will present some conclusions of this roundtable.
Thank you, Evelyn. So I would like first to say thank you to FELANPE, particularly to Dr. Dolores Rodriguez. Thank you very much for all your support during these past 2-3 years. Thank you very much. I would like also to say thank you to Dr. Charles Bermudez and the Colombian Association of Clinical Nutrition. Thank you for all the support to the Cartagena Declaration and the International Working Group. Thank you also to all of you, all the presidents of the society, for being here in this roundtable. After hearing you all the interventions, I think that I can summarize all the ideas in 3 key messages, I think. First of all, the need to raise awareness. I think that we all agree that we need to continue raising awareness on our problem, the malnutrition and the access to nutritional care. The second message is that we need to take actions in favor of promoting nutritional care as a human right. And the third one is the need to develop a plan, action plans, and an implementation program. I would like also to add a final message from my part, for my own. And I would like to say that despite coming from different regions of the world with different health, economic, social, political situations, we have been able to come together around a common problem, the problem of malnutrition and the access to nutritional care. And I really think that we need, the world globally need more action like this. People from different regions of the world working together for the same objective. So I'm convinced that through our joint actions, we can work for what is our best interest, the well-being and the health of our patients. So thank you very much for your participation in this roundtable.
Thank you, Dr. Cardenas, for your summary. And finally, we have some conclusions from Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you. Dr. Tokrais, Gail Cressy, Rocco Barazzoni, Wignine, Ugnik Pinimpong, Teresa Pounds, Diana Cárdenas, Humberto Arenas, Charles Bermúdez, Biradeb Prespracer, Sergio Santana, Ana María Ferreira, Master Sonia Echeverri, and Dr. Evelyn Frias. I end this session by quoting Mother Teresa. We ourselves feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean will be less because of that missing drop. Thank you.